And yeah, congratulations for making it through a whole year of COVID education, which has been a challenge, equally a learning experience, I think, perhaps a bit less planned. Anyway, it's great to have so many of you with us today. So my year, just to give you a bit more information really about what I'm doing, as Conor said, I teach at King's Education here in Oxford, and it's a school for foreign students that would normally come over here. But of course, this year's been a bit different. So a lot of them have had to stay at home. So we started off last April, May, going into, well, a bit sooner, April, online teaching with Microsoft Teams. And then towards the autumn, the students did come back and we started to do hybrid teaching. So we did a bit of online teaching for some, and a few students were in the class. So we're sort of juggling the two types. Of course, since I wrote that blurb or sent that blurb about me, now we've gone into just online teaching. And then next week, I think things are due to resume again in the school. So we're just about to go back. I've got my COVID test next Wednesday to check that I'm safe for my students. And yeah, we'll be resuming again. So that's my background. And I have to say, it's been not the easiest experience. It's been absolutely chaotic to my mind. And the transition from online to sort of hybrid to offline to online again has, I think, been very disconcerting. And I still don't feel I've got a full grasp of sort of how to make those transitions. I feel it's been a real learning experience. I'm grateful, of course, to have my job, which I know a lot of people haven't. And I think staff morale and issues of training as well have been a huge issue in our school. A lot of teachers haven't managed to, we've lost a few on the way because the number of students has gone down. And I think a lot of us feel we haven't really learnt how to do this. It was all suddenly thrown on us. So morale, when you get to meetings, everyone is sort of tearing their hair out and complaining about the amount of marking they've got to do, and how it's got so many messages flying about. So a really discombobulating experience, I think, for many of us. Anyway, is my experience like yours? I'd love to know a little bit about what your experience of the last year has been. And I think the easiest way to do this is to do a couple of polls. So I'm going to ask Kolos, if you wouldn't mind, to put up a poll now asking what your experience has been of teaching the last year. Has it always been what sort of online all the way through, mostly online maybe? Have you done hybrid teaching, like I think mine has been mostly? That means obviously half online and half in the classroom at the same time. Or has it been mostly face-to-face or even all face-to-face teaching? You should see around about now the survey on your screen. So if you could just submit your response, hopefully one of those categories will match your experience. So I'm going to put mostly hybrid for me, and then click submit, and then it should disappear. Okay, wonderful. It's great, isn't it, to see these lines creeping up. I don't know if you can actually see the poll results, but I think, yeah, they've stopped changing now. So most of you, I think, have voted, and by far the majority have been mostly online. And in fact, quite a few of you all online as well. 32% of you have just taught online. You must be missing the interaction with the students, surely. Goodness me. I mean, I feel really appreciative actually having been able to get into the classroom now for some of the time. 17% of you have done mostly hybrid, and face-to-face, yeah, 10%. Only 4 of you, that's quite a lot as far as I'm concerned, have actually managed to do all face-to-face. Yeah, brilliant. Okay. Thank you so much for that. That just gives me a sense of what we need to focus on. And I think there does need to be a sort of emphasis on motivation in that online space, particularly today, but we will try and look at both. So those of you who have said mostly face-to-face, there will be a lot, I hope, which you will find useful and relevant to you. Now, I'd like to actually run another poll as well, if Kolos, you wouldn't mind. And this time, I think I said one or two issues that have affected me, and I'd like to know what's affected, if anything, you this year. I'm assuming that your motivation has taken maybe a bit of a hit this year, that you, like me, struggled to feel that you're doing your job in the way that you would like to do because of all the changes. Now, that is a big assumption, and you're probably far more prepared than I have been. But could you anyway select the option that you feel best describes what has affected your motivation? If none have, just pop none of the above at the bottom. Oh, wow. That's totally different from what I thought. Totally different. Brilliant. Okay. So a full 46% of you have said that workload has been the big issue. 46%. That is astonishing. Especially because, personally, I haven't managed to answer the question why. Why is it that we're doing so much more work? I mean, training some of it, but for me, I find myself doing a heck of a lot more marking than I used to do. And I don't know if that's the same with you. I think because I can't actually assess the students in the classroom in the same way, I tend to tell them to put it online and I'll look at it afterwards. So if they're doing speaking activities, I'll say, record yourself, put it online, and then I have to go, of course, and listen to the recordings. And the same with reading. I usually give them the marks in the class, but now I'm actually getting them to send me the marks online, or I'm assessing it myself by doing all the marking. And I seem to be doing twice as much. Plus, all that kind of uploading documents, making everything available online, it's infuriating, isn't it? Anyway, I shouldn't say I'm glad that it's taking you so much effort as well, but it's a relief to me to know that I'm not alone in that experience. What I was thinking you might be saying is job satisfaction as being a big issue. But that was second with 19%. So 19% of you who've selected job satisfaction as being the biggest issue. Yeah, let's just pick up on that then, because for me, one of the issues this year, I think, has been that I normally feel, with the buzz of online sort of in live teaching, a really good relationship with the students, as I'm sure you do. And I always feel that the students, we sort of create a real sort of buzz around the learning experience. Whereas online, I feel that students aren't there almost, or they're very sporadically there, dropping out a bit, disengaged a little bit. And I just feel I'm not doing something right. I feel like I'm failing a little bit as a teacher. And not all the time, and sometimes I do a few things I think, yes, that really worked. And that's partly why I think I'd like to do this session with you today. But I think it's been a frustrating experience. And personally, I feel that satisfaction I get from being a teacher in a classroom isn't available to me, or hasn't really been available to me this year. So that's been my personal experience. And I think a lot of that has been to do with student motivation. So because our students are feeling slightly less engaged, I think it makes us as teachers feel that we are somehow sort of, failing as well. So what we're going to do today is to look at an aspect of this, which I think has been really important. I think it's not just the processes that we're going through. I think it's the place that we're learning in. And that the reason our students haven't been perhaps as engaged is partly not because we've changed, but because the environment of learning has changed. That students have been removed from that classroom context to the online space. And I think that is what has caused all sorts of, I think, confusing challenges that I haven't really sort of fully understood, but I think is having a greater impact than I think. So today, what I'd like to do is to share with you some of these some of my thoughts about how the motivation of students might change from them moving from the school environment to the online space, and in their homes as well. And to ask really what we can do about that, if we can respond or adapt our style of teaching from one environment to the other, and therefore sort of feel more, have strategies that we know work for each different environment. So today we're going to look at some strategies we know work for the sort of classroom space, and some we know that work for the online space, assuming that most of us will be transitioning between the two at various times during the year, hopefully in one direction, but you never know. I'm sure many of us wouldn't have imagined that we would still be doing online teaching now. Okay, so that's the objective. That's what I hope to get out of the session. So let's crack on straight away. And we're going to start with some research by OUP. If I can just move the slide forward. Yes, success. All right. So we're going to look at a quick survey which was done in May last year. And this survey asked teachers to select 2 problems that they have with the online world. 2 problems with online teaching. And they, as I say, they could choose 2. And the result of this was that 51% said that student engagement was the biggest challenge. 51. So quite different from our results in a way. Most of us said lesson preparation, I think, or marking and stuff, but 51% from this survey said engagement was the issue. And what I think is interesting is that was last May. What would it be like now when we've all, sicked the back teeth of teaching online, or maybe you're not, I don't know, I'm speaking personally. I just wonder if it's even worse now. But anyway, back in May last year, when it was still a novelty, 51% said it was a problem. But it hasn't all been a problem. And the next slide, if I can just get to it, reveals the answers to a different question. This time, teachers were asked an open question. Have you or your students experienced any advantages to working online? Now, these were some of the ones, the main areas that teachers selected or talked about. And better lesson dynamics. I'd love to meet those teachers. 10% got better. How do they do that? I guess we could say that 90% didn't. So maybe that's maybe it doesn't make sense. It does make sense after all. But yeah, so a little bit interesting, some of these results. But what interested me was the 2 bottom right ones: improve learner autonomy and learning new skills and methods. The new skills and methods we could summarize as a sort of competence thing, that students felt maybe in the online space they had more sense of know-how, that they knew how to do things, or that they learned things like PowerPoint or Google Hangouts or Teams, or I don't know, whatever method they were using. So yeah, the improved learner autonomy, easier to understand. Students have a bit more distance from the teachers and can perhaps enjoy that process of taking control of their learning, I don't know, while they're in a lesson, Googling something they've learned, looking up words, doing things that they wouldn't normally be able to do as part of the learning experience. Now, the reason why those 2 things interest me is because both of those are connected to the 2 central pillars, or 2 of the 3 pillars of self-determination theory, which for me is the way to understand motivation, the key to understanding motivation. So motivation, self-determination theory really states that there are 3 fundamental needs that all of us are constantly on the lookout for fulfilling. We all want to fulfill. One of them is autonomy, that feeling of being in control of our environment. The second one is relatedness, feeling that we can be close to the people we care about. The third one is competence, feeling like we know what we're doing, which has really suffered this year for me. The idea then is that we are almost like foraging, really, constantly on the lookout in the activities around us for ways in which we can gain these three senses. And if an activity promises us this, we will be drawn to it. We will be motivated to do it. Hence, yeah, intrinsic motivation. But it's not just in the present. It's also about the future as well. And if by doing something in the present, we picture ourselves doing something in the future that promises autonomy, relatedness, competence, then we will also feel motivated. And this, of course, we call instrumental motivation. Intrinsic is the word for the first in the present. But yeah, if it's in the future, we call it instrumental. So this confused me a bit at first. I was thinking, well, hang on, there's more autonomy online. There's more sense of competence, perhaps, we're acquiring. Why aren't we more motivated? Sure, relatedness isn't there, is it? We're not with our classmates. We don't feel that buzz, that connection with other people, even with the teacher, that's so important. And to show you, later I'll show you how important it is with some research that was done, a quote from a researcher. But, you know, autonomy and competence, 2 out of 3 isn't bad. Why do we see such a drop-off in student engagement, with 51% of teachers saying it's a real issue? And 14% of us as well. Oh, sorry, more than that, wasn't it? 19% of us, I think. Yeah. Well, I think there are 3 reasons for this. And I'm going to take you through them all now. The first reason I'd like to focus on is something that I'd forgotten about, really, in school. And that's the role of negative motivation. Negative motivation, then, is the fear, if you like, that you will lose motivation, autonomy, relatedness, competence by not doing something. All right, so I'll give you an example. If we are in school and we don't learn, we might lose our autonomy when we get put into detention. That hasn't happened to me, but you know, it does happen to me. We might lose our relatedness if we get sent out the classroom. We might lose our sense of competence if the teacher asks us a question and we weren't listening. So there are 3 reasons why we might lose motivation if we don't learn. And this is, of course, this is called negative motivation. Okay, so if learning stops you losing autonomy, relatedness, competence, you might do it. Now, I've said those 3 things for the school environment, but just think about the online environment. If at home, so you're never going to get a detention. You perhaps don't care so much about people. We all care about people we're with, don't we? But not so much about people we're distant from. I'm like this with my cousins. I never think about them until we meet, usually at some family event like a wedding. And then I suddenly, why didn't I get in touch with you? This is crazy. And that, of course, is because when we're close to people, we care about them. And there's this sense of importance. At distance, we simply don't. And so you can't, you know, if you kick someone out of a chat room, they probably won't mind so much as if you kick them out of a lesson. And competence as well. At home, you know, I think we care about sort of competence, you know, in a different way. It's not so important. What's competent for me at home is different from what's competent in the classroom. Yeah. And basically, I think everyone knows that if you can't answer a question on an online lesson, it's nothing to do with you. It's the internet connection. That's the problem. So yeah, that's what my students do anyway. If they can't answer a question, they say, "Sorry, teacher, internet went down." So I think we simply don't get that negative motivation so much at home. I don't think it exists in the same way. Now, the second thing which I think is a problem is what we might call opportunity cost, but you and I would probably call distractions. So we are more motivated to learn something when there isn't anything else that's more attractive around us. In other words, there aren't other ways we can get autonomy, relatedness, or competence. In school, what distractions, honestly, are students going to have? Okay, maybe passing messages to each other, but, you know, looking out of a window, I mean, it's generally speaking, there isn't much more around you at school that's more enticing or more attractive. But think about the home environment. You can have an opportunity for relatedness by jumping on, I know, Snapchat. You have an opportunity for competence by doing some gaming and suddenly feel really good at something. You have an opportunity for autonomy by, I don't know, jumping into bed for a bit, going to the snack cupboard in the kitchen, whatever. There's so many ways that you can assert your independence at home. It's your environment. Do what you like. And so the opportunity cost at home is so much greater. Students can gain autonomy, relatedness, competence in so many other ways that they simply cannot in the school environment. And there's a third issue as well, that every context we're in has a different set of behaviours that are normal. Injunctive there means rules, and behaviour norms, things people normally do. Different associations, I look at a desk, I think of study. I look at a bed, I think of sleep. And institutional values. Don't forget the family is an institution. Schools care about achievement. Families care about caring for each other. Different things are important. And each of these means that we define being autonomous, being competent, and being related in very different ways according to where we are. So if I'm at school, I might feel competent if I raise my hand like everyone else and can answer a question. At home, I feel competent if I can cook for my kids or help them or talk to them. In fact, if I work at home, I feel incompetent as a dad. Autonomy is the same. We're autonomous if we feel we can control the environment around us. At school, I feel autonomous if I can get out from behind my desk, go up to the board, write something on it, move around the classroom, but I'm still studying. At home, I feel autonomous if I can kick off my shoes, sit on the chair, pick up the remote control, and just do what I like. That's autonomy for me at home. Again, it's not defined by learning. And the other thing are the values. At home, I value being a good dad. That's what's important to me. And when I get home, I think, I can't believe I haven't thought about my kids today. I haven't called them. That's so stupid. I'm supposed to be a dad at home. At school, I care about my students. I'm a teacher. And for me, that sense of what is important to me is shifting. I mean, obviously, my kids are still important to me, but I'm much more focused on being a good teacher when I'm in school. And I think it's the same with students. So I think we have three sort of huge challenges here, which actually affect all types of motivation and explain, I think, why the home environment is so much more difficult to motivate students in. Now, I think there's a big dilemma here with the values and norms. I think either we try to remind students, enforce the school values through online learning, or we have to say to ourselves, we have to accept that we're not going to do that, and that we're going to have to work with the student's current environment. So we'll look at we're going to go now through different ways in which we can promote students' sense of autonomy, competence, and relatedness. And as we do that, I'm also going to think about how we can work with the space that the students are in, rather than trying to constantly remind them that they're at school and they have to stay at their computer and do all the things that we normally do at school. All right, so I think there is a place for that, but we're going to look at how we can do both. All right, so if you're ready to come with me, and let's move on to some solutions. The first thing we'll look at then is autonomy. And to me, one of the things about, so we'll start off with the online space. And as you can see from the top there, for me, the dilemma has always been about finding balance. You want to give autonomy, but not too much that students don't take advantage of it. But I think there's so much way we can give autonomy through the actual processes of learning, and just the act of that share button. I don't know what you use. Microsoft Teams, you've got a little share thing, and you can the students can take control of the screen. I think that's so powerful. It's like coming up to the whiteboard, isn't it? But it's even more powerful because they can really share what they are, whatever they want to show. I also think that you can do this sort of through researching and preparing online, that in a lesson, you do all the research and the lesson starts once the research is done. But with online learning, you can, if you want to, you can send a message 10 minutes before and tell students to, oh, if anyone's got any information about this, please get ready to share it. There can be a lot more contribution from the students. I'm just going to show you what I mean by this. This is an activity I did the other month with students online. And I told them all at the very beginning of the lesson, actually, while I was doing the register, to go to, just Google Pictures, find a picture of a building that they felt was interesting or they wanted to share, and to post it into the chat box. So there you go. You can see the students posting their pictures. This one's from Shanghai. This one's, I think, a Buddhist temple somewhere, possibly Myanmar. And what I then did was, when I did the vocabulary presentation, I just got them to write descriptions based on the vocabulary I had taught, and they had to guess which picture it was that they were describing. No preparation for me, all preparation for them. They get a sense of autonomy. I learn some interesting stuff about buildings in their country. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about, the idea of sharing screens and sharing resources. On the flip side, then, I think online autonomy does involve being cautious about students having too much. I mean, I've got too much autonomy. I've got some students who I just don't see. They come on at the beginning, and then every 5 minutes I try to ask them a question and they're not there. And of course they'll say, oh yeah, internet's really bad today, but you know it isn't. You know, it's just them. And I think, why not? A lot of students are influenced by negative motivation, not by positive motivation. And so how do you do that? Well, I think what I've often done is just, as soon as I realized they're not there, sent them a message, contacted the school administrator, said, we've got a student not contributing, can you call them? Which interrupts the lesson. It's not ideal. But I think, that often we try to instill that sense of discipline that we're used to in the classroom, when we're fighting a losing battle in many ways. So I wonder, I don't know if you do the same, but I'm always sort of trying to get them to raise hands, try to sort of make sure I know they're participating. But I can't help thinking there are sort of other ways we could maybe do this. I think one of the things we could do is perhaps try to make the activities in the home more in line with the environment they're in. So they're in an environment where they've got lots of autonomy. I don't know if anyone knows the game Taskmaster. It's I think it's one of those ITV program on television in the UK, where they are the presenters set the viewers different tasks to do, and there's a board game which I won't show you now, but it's a board game which sets silly tasks around the home. So I don't know, you have to, one that comes to mind is you have to try and jump into bed in as few steps as possible, or find objects around the house which are blue, find as many as you can, or find objects which are descending in size order. So 10 objects starting with something big, getting smaller, 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 smaller. Can you find 10 like that? And it's great fun. My kids really, really love it. But it just got me thinking, well, if the online space for students is really about being able to move, then surely that is the kind of activity that I should be doing with them. So let's imagine we ask students to find, rectangular objects, 10, as many as they can. They might sort of get up and run around the house. We're just trying to find a few. Someone's given me a box of After Eights there. I've got a sponge from the kitchen, a pack of snacks, which is the story of my lockdown life. And a sock box. There we go, for socks to go in. So yeah, do you see what I mean? Getting students to sort of use the online space and move around as they would at home. I think also with the tasks that we set as well, we might like to think about giving students the kind of freedom. I'm just going to go forward to another activity I've done where I ask students just to go and find a presenter that they liked. I've got every week with a group of students, I do presentation skills. And on the Friday lesson, in fact, I've got it tomorrow. Tomorrow they're going to be talking about a visual that they, how to present a visual. They're going to be taking control of the screen and practicing doing it. And I asked them to find a favorite presenter that they enjoyed, usually on the internet, and to share it. And they sent me the link, and I clicked on it to check it was okay first, and then I shared it with them. And sometimes it wasn't that appropriate, but generally speaking, it was, it was sort of pretty good. And one of them, I learned this fantastic TED talk from Lauren Singer about zero waste lifestyles. I don't know if you've seen it, but gosh, I learned so much in that lesson. It was brilliant. And I really got to know the students as well. And they were doing something which they would normally do. Nothing to do with learning. This is just their what they normally did. So I think, again, do you see what I mean? The idea of trying to tap into the kind of way they perceive autonomy in their own environment and using it or hijacking it in a way as teachers ourselves. Obviously, if we shift to the the offline space, the classroom space, the live setting, I think this raises questions. If students are getting used to autonomy in the home environment, what's it going to be like when they come back into school? And are they going to expect a lot more? Well, it concerns me, this. I wonder if we're going to have to try and introduce more autonomy when we come back. Are we going to have to sort of leave the room a bit more, send students off to work spaces around the school? Are we going to have to use mobile phones more, letting students use mobile phones, maybe get them to put up things around the classroom more? I don't know. It could be an interesting transition going back into the classroom. But I think we have to consider perhaps how that sense of freedom we can translate into the sort of classroom space. I wonder if you want to put up as well any solutions you found to the issue of distractions at all. If you've got any solutions to students online, particularly just getting distracted with stuff, and how do you deal with it? It's probably a question I should have asked a moment ago, actually, but do share some thoughts if you've got about how we stop students sort of getting distracted, particularly in the online space. Okay, we must press on because we're a little bit late starting, and I want to make sure I answer as many of your questions as possible. Okay, yeah, collaborative whiteboards, interesting idea for the very interesting idea for the classroom space. There about autonomy, someone just mentioned. A student told me something about an online whiteboard called, I think it's Menti, MENTI.com, actually short for Mentimeter. And it's great. You can get students to go online, put a code in, and they can post something on the whiteboard, just one word per student, and you can create a beautiful word cloud. And that's the kind of thing I put it on the board in the classroom. And that's the kind of thing I think we're going to be doing, we're going to have to do, to make students feel that they are owning the classroom space. Anyway, all right, so autonomy is going to be a bit more of a challenge for us when we go back. Relatedness, I think, is a major issue. And I think this quote, I'll let you read it briefly. This quote, I think, illustrates the problem. So yeah, that sense of being related to each other, I think, is fundamental, and could be one of the main reasons why students are sort of dropping out a bit, finding online learning incredibly demanding, difficult to motivate themselves to do. Yeah, in the classroom setting, I'm sure you are all absolute experts at getting students to feel related. Maybe just post a couple of things you do online to make students feel kind of bonding, that sort of sensation of bonding together in the classroom. Do feel free to just post any ideas, things that you do. I think warmers for me, obviously little games at the beginning. I do it a nice one where students hold their hands and they have to put their hand between and clap and squash each other's hands, little activities that get people playing with each other, feeling that sense of togetherness. Sharing jokes, someone said. Thanks, Vichana, there. Class, what else have we got? Quizzes, yeah, games. Hyperdocs, I don't know what that was. Yeah, okay, so lots of ideas for the things we might make, how we might make students related. I think in the classroom and the online environment, what do we do? I mean, so these are my ideas for class. And I think when we're at a distance, maybe we have to rely on things like sharing emoji more. If they put a post up, putting a thumbs up, we might have to rely on getting students into those breakout spaces, which would be the equivalent of, I don't know, a sort of group activity. Interestingly, connected to that idea about the values, I call my breakout spaces after the top universities in the world. So there's a Harvard and a Oxford and stuff, so that students do have that sense of values, identifying with school values a little bit. Yeah, we could also, well, forget that. I wanted to, if we had more time, discuss what your thoughts would be on whether we should actually exclude some students who aren't in the room. I don't think we should, but because that's a bit too much like school, and I think we should just accept the online space. But I just wanted to know what your thoughts were, if you ever do that. Personal messaging, I think, is the most powerful tool for relatedness. Very often I have students messaging me on a Sunday evening, and I don't respond on a Sunday evening. I do draw the line, but before the lesson on the Monday, I will respond. And I think it's so powerful. Students really benefit and enjoy that sensation that they've been in personal contact with the teacher. And so in class, you can't do that. They're rushing off to their next class. They're off to their to have lunch. But online, there's this wonderful, if you think the student didn't contribute much in the class, you can just type a message and say, anything up? What was the problem? And it really, I think, it helps bond us. And most importantly, when they post anything in the chat room, I wish I could do it with you guys, but there's like thousands of us posting stuff. But to acknowledge the things that students have posted. All right, we must rush on quickly to finish off and look at competence briefly. In the classroom, I always pair stronger and weaker students and get them to check answers before sharing. And I can't do that online. It's really frustrating. It used to be something I always did. So what can I do in the online space? In the class, we can always give positive feedback as well and display work. And those two are things we can also do online. We can also accept contributions in the class too. But the online space, I think there are special things we can do when we're online. And one of the wonderful opportunities I found is this idea of rehearsing before you show. So putting students into pairs and getting them to rehearse a dialogue before they actually then post it for you to listen to. And then there's a sense that they're not losing face. This whole foreign language anxiety issue disappears because they know they can control it and record it before anyone else sees it. So I think that's a wonderful thing. And the other thing is about sharing like homework. Like sometimes in the classroom, I want to highlight a student who's done particularly well. And how do you do it? I mean, do you photocopy their work for everyone? It's really hard, isn't it? But if you're online, of course, you can just share screen and show the student's work that you feel is deserving of acknowledgement. And that reinforces, it's like displaying it on the walls, but reinforces the idea of competence. And I've noticed about 6 or 7 of you so far putting Kahoot quizzes. I think a lot of students really do feel that no one is seeing what they do offline. I think in the classroom, there's always the sense that the teacher is looking at their work and giving them a smile, a nod, saying, oh, that's very good, well done. I think offline, they feel cut off from that and that there's no chance for them to demonstrate that they know stuff and they can do it. But of course, there is, and Kahoot is just absolutely the best. And I think beginning every lesson with a quick review with Kahoot, 7, 8, 9 questions, whatever, it doesn't have to be many. A quick online quiz where the students can show you that they have understood, that they have been studying, they have learned, I think is invaluable. And it replaces that monitoring in the classroom, which I think students really miss. I know they don't like it when you're monitoring, but I think they do miss it. They like that feeling that the teacher has said, yeah, well done, you're doing well there. And I think Kahoot can help us out with that. Gosh, time flies, doesn't it? We've sort of, had to really race through there. And I wish I had more of your ideas as well to sort of, discuss. But anyway, it's been a real pleasure. Just to think that's the book I did, Motivational Teaching. If anyone's interested, I think you can buy it in chapters as well, rather than a whole book. But anyway, if you're interested, it's there. And I'd like to just say, thank you a huge amount for participating. And if anyone's got any questions, of course, for the remaining 10 minutes of the session, I'll be very, very happy indeed to try and respond.
Thank you for this, Nick. Perhaps I think it's a good idea if you could just move over to the Q&A section there. And could you please look at the ones that are now published? So Q&A and published.
Thank you, Carlos. Okay, so what have we got? Liliana, Liliana Beatriz, I think your question, what are the 3 best? Oh, I hate this. You know, when someone says, oh, what are your 3 favorite films of all time? I just have a complete mental blank. 3 best engagement strategies online and offline. That's a great question. Okay, so just to try and pick them out. Online, I think, is going to have to be the, getting them to show stuff, share their websites. And, I've got a student to show their notes. I've never been able to do that in the classroom, but they actually just showed their notes online and it inspired everyone. They were beautiful notes. And everyone else sort of watched, and I love that. Turning cameras on. I didn't do it for ages. And then I started doing it and it was brilliant. I was able to smile, you know, the students, I could see them smiling and it was wonderful. I think I didn't do it because I didn't like ironing shirts in the morning. But as soon as I had done it, it just transformed the lesson. So I think that was one. I think in the classroom, just that sense of, I don't suppose sort of discovery, going on a journey with them, and giving them that sort of one-to-one attention. It has so many different strategies you can use in the classroom, isn't there, for engagement? But I think it's not trying to control it, but handing over. Very often I sort of stand there at the front trying to sort of engage, but setting up an activity that you know will kind of have its own momentum and just sort of allowing them, putting yourself in second place. Online, I tend to talk far too much, like I'm demonstrating now. In the classroom, the best strategy is just to shut up, let them take control. Anyway, sorry, I hope that's all right. Not as Ferruz, you asked, will you still continue hybrid teaching after COVID-19? What a good question. Do you know, I think we will, because I think the school has just discovered that it's possible and they're going to make money from it. I teach in a private school, you see. I think most students have missed teaching in that live setting. So I think we are going to see a bit of a reaction against online. But I think now that schools know it's a possibility, I think when students are ill, absent, I think we will see them joining classes online so they don't miss out. I think there will be a place for it, I'm sure. And I wouldn't be unhappy, I think it's tough hybrid teaching, and you've got to constantly, but there are ways to get around it once you get used to it. Anyway, practical suggestions for hybrid teaching, Paula. It's really tough, isn't it? You have to obviously have students in the classroom with their devices as well, so they're all online, and I always pair the ones that are online just online with the ones that are in school as well. So that it's not like two separate classrooms. So I do pair work. So in a sense, I put the ones in the classroom online as well, so that they still feel they're sharing a space. I think you have to do that. The main challenge with hybrid teaching, I found, is that you can't do your sort of classroom activities like cutting up stuff. You know, all of us as EFL teachers, it's our bread and butter, isn't it? Cutting up, ordering, you know, and finding ways to order things online. The other day I did an ordering exercise. Well, I've done many terrible ones. I haven't worked at all, but just by putting it, I think, in a Word document and getting them to just move up and down the events that happened rather than putting numbers on them. Or so, I mean, there are ways to do it, but I think that's the challenge, isn't it? Trying to find activities that you can do as easily online as offline. Yeah, I think pairing students this time next week, if you ask me, I'll have probably a few more, but pairing students offline, online, I think is the best strategy. And it's so important that they don't feel cut off. I always give more attention to the ones in the classroom and feel terrible for it. So there has to be a way of making the online students feel as included as the ones in the classroom. And I often sort of give little extra tasks to the ones in the classroom as well, just, you know, to make them feel that personal connection. Because when you're looking at the screen online, I think they can feel neglected as well. So, you know, it's a balancing act, isn't it? Anyway, thanks for that question, Paola. If anyone else has got any answers for Paola's question, please do let me know. What is hybrid when we're talking about classes? Yeah, Luciana, hybrid is simply, sorry, Luciana asked, what is it? It's simply about teaching with some online students and some live students in the same lesson. So you've got, some on the internet, and you keep having to go to them and checking that they are, you know, okay. And then you have to work with the ones in the classroom as well. So very often what you've got is a camera in the classroom, capturing what's going on, and the students online, instead of seeing you, they see the classroom through the camera, and so they feel they're in the class in a way, but the students in the classroom can't really see them. That's the annoying thing. So it's not ideal, but I always get them to say hello to each other at the beginning, and get the ones who are online to say something about the weather in their country, or, you know, something that they feel they can talk about, and we always sort of compare, you know, their environment with the school environment, and try and get them to find common ground so that they feel they're actually sharing information. So yeah, blended learning is just when you use, sorry, this is Mary asking a question, what's the difference between blended and hybrid? And blended learning is simply where you use both with the same students. So very often it's that flipped classroom method, isn't it? Where you get them doing online stuff before the lesson, and then when they're in the class, they're actually doing the, you know, real live activities. So blended just means using both, blending online resources with offline resources. Whereas hybrid is some students online, some students offline, mixed together in the same class. Oh, a real challenge. Anyway, I hope that answers your question, Mary. Let's quickly just see if I think we've got time, just a minute. Carlos, do interrupt me if I'm going over at all.
I think this is fine, but if we could just take one or two more questions, I think we could, we could finish on time, really.
Yeah, okay, one or two more. Let's take Carla B. How can we encourage and motivate students to develop their speaking skills during the virtual education? Yeah, because they often say, I have a problem with my microphone. They do, don't they? They do so much. Yeah. Vocaroo is the website I use all the time. And I know there's so many recording websites, but I tell them to go into the chat rooms, the breakout rooms a lot. And that does work. And I like it because I can drop in without them knowing sometimes. They don't notice I've come in, and I can listen to them. Whereas in a classroom, if you go up to a group of students who are having a chat, they will stop. All of them will stop. But in the breakout rooms, I've noticed they don't. And you can sort of hang out, listen to them talking. Sometimes they talk about you and you feel a bit bad. But it's still, you know, great to have that ability. It's the same with writing. You can drop onto their pages they're writing on, if you get them to write in the class notebook in, say, Teams, for example, and it's brilliant for monitoring. So I love that, being able to get close to students without them noticing. And so yeah, put them in chat boxes, get them to record stuff in Vocaroo. That's VOCAR, so VOCAROO, Vocaroo, and get them to record something and post the link to you as a homework submission, and then you can listen to them. And it's wonderful listening to them at home. They're disinhibited, they're chatting about their weekend, and it's brilliant. That, you know, so that I think they can do so much speaking, actually. And especially presentations, it's more difficult to have interactions, but I really think by getting them to take control and doing presentations, you're using the online space much more effectively. Okay. All right, I think we might, I've noticed that the clock has just hit 8 o'clock, so we might have to stop there. It's just a quick one. Isabella, you said, how do we define relatedness? Yeah, it's different from affiliation, which is the sense of belonging to an institution. I think relatedness is just that sense of feeling human contact, that we are, the people we care about, we are accepted. It's all about in-groups, I think. If the in-group accepts you, you feel related, the people who you want to be part of. So that's how I would define it. Gosh, online teaching.
Okay.
We'll have to stop, but thank you so much for your questions.
Yeah, I think that was just lovely. We could squeeze in 2 more questions as we promised. And thank you, Nick, for a wonderful presentation. I think this will wrap up the first day of ELTOC 2021 really very nicely. And I'd like to say thank you again. And I will just hand